All right, how does a sitting president, a head of state, end up in a U.S. federal prison? I mean, think about that for a second. Today, we're going to unpack the absolutely wild and controversial story of Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro. We're talking about a journey from a hand-picked successor to one of the most wanted men on the planet, and it's all based on some really fascinating source material we've got.
So yeah, how does this happen? It's a great question. That journey from the presidential palace to a prison cell, it's definitely not a straight line. Our source lays out this whole roadmap, and it's filled with things like political inheritance, a total economic collapse, and just immense international pressure. It all leads to this downfall that, honestly, some people say was basically written in the stars long before it actually happened.
Okay, so to really get a grip on Maduro, you first have to talk about his mentor, the, let's face it, larger-than-life figure of Hugo Chávez. You see, according to our source, Maduro's story doesn't start in some fancy political academy. Nope, it starts on the streets. He was a bus driver, a union leader, a true believer in Chávez's revolutionary movement from the ground up.
And man, his rise was just incredibly fast. We're talking about just over a decade to go from being a member of the National Assembly all the way up to vice president. So what was the secret sauce? Well, according to our source, it boiled down to one thing: absolute unwavering loyalty to Chávez. And that loyalty, it paid off big time when Chávez, in his final days, basically anointed Maduro as his chosen heir. So Maduro just barely scrapes by with an election win in 2013 and officially becomes president. But here's the thing. He wasn't inheriting the same country that Chávez had ruled, not even close. Venezuela was literally teetering on the edge of a catastrophic collapse. And that crisis, it would go on to define his entire presidency.
And the human cost of this crisis? It's just staggering. It's hard to even wrap your head around it. According to the UN figures that our source cites, over 7 million people were forced to flee Venezuela. Think about that number. That's one of the largest mass migrations in modern history. An entire nation just emptying out, with people desperate for food, safety, and any kind of future.
So what was pushing everyone out? It was a total nightmare scenario. The economy, which was all about oil, just completely imploded. You had hyperinflation, which meant your money was basically worthless paper. Store shelves, totally bare. And if you even dared to protest, well, you faced a brutal crackdown. The sources mention thousands were allegedly killed by security forces. Just awful. And as the country was falling apart, its democracy was right there with it. Get this, the opposition actually won control of the legislature back in 2015. But you know what? It didn't matter. Maduro was granted the power to rule by decree. That basically made the legislature totally irrelevant. And as his critics were quick to point out, it was the moment a democracy officially turned into a dictatorship. Then came the 2018 election. And that was pretty much the breaking point for the international community. Dozens of countries, all these big international organizations, they just called it a sham. They flat out refused to recognize the results. And that set the stage for a massive showdown. And this is where things get, well, really weird and complicated. The head of the National Assembly, this guy, Juan Guaidó, he makes this incredibly bold move. He just declares himself the legitimate interim president. So suddenly you have this bizarre, super dangerous situation where Venezuela has two men claiming to be in charge. And the rest of the world, it had to pick a side. Meanwhile, back inside Venezuela, the tide was turning against Maduro in a huge way. I mean, check out these polling numbers from 2019, which our source cites. They show this stunning reality. Only 4% of the public saw him as the legitimate president. At the same time, a massive 84% backed his rival, Juan Guaidó. I mean, even his core supporters were just gone. So now you've got Maduro with his back completely against the wall, both at home and abroad. The pressure on him was just immense. He's getting hit with crippling sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and then a series of absolutely wild, almost movie-like plots designed to take him out. Seriously, these attempts to remove him sound like they're straight out of a spy thriller. First up, you have exploding drones during a military parade. Then there's this bizarre, totally botched beach invasion by a small group of mercenaries. On top of that, the US government indicts him as a narco-terrorist and, according to the source, even hatches a secret plan to try and bribe his personal pilot. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, and this is where our source's narrative takes a really interesting turn into the future. It describes this specific moment in August 2025 where the US government just ups the ante completely, slapping a massive $50 million bounty on his head. At that point, he's officially one of the most wanted fugitives on the entire planet. All right, and now we get to the most shocking part of this whole story. Our source doesn't frame this as a what-if scenario or a possibility. No, it's written as if it's a historical fact, an event that has already happened, even though it's set in the future. We're talking about the capture of Nicolás Maduro. The scene is set with just chilling precision. The date, January 3rd, 2026. The time, before dawn. U.S. Special Forces launch a surgical strike deep inside Venezuela. This isn't an invasion. It's a snatch and grab. They have one single target.
And then the source gives us what it claims is the official U.S. announcement. The United States has captured Nicolás Maduro and his wife. They will face criminal charges. According to this account, they were immediately flown directly to a federal jail in Brooklyn to stand trial. So there you have it. A story with a beginning, a middle, and a very specific pre-written end. From bus driver to president to prisoner. But it leaves you with a really big question, right? What does it mean for the future when an ending is already written like this? Is it supposed to be a prediction? Is it a warning? Or is it something else entirely? We'd love to know what you think, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in.